Sometimes when you take a step back, you can actually take a bigger step forward. When people say, how much does it cost to set up a squat? I laugh because it's completely the wrong question to be asking. The reason I say that is because how much your practice is going to cost depends on. But I did it by reducing a clinical day, but I cut down from 5 to 4. What was interesting, my income didn't change. You have to be honest, sometimes practices don't work out, and that's okay. But
practice ownership, it makes a lot of sense. In fact, in a lot of countries, that is the culture. You qualify, you buy a practice, you do your own brand of dentistry. You're never truly fulfilled until you are a practice owner. In fact, in some countries, the associates are rare. Now, here in the UK, US, Australia, there is a big associate culture, if you like. There are many associates out there. And you know what? As an associate myself, there are so many good things, but there are also some bad things. The lack of control. What if tomorrow a corporate takes over the practice, completely changes the culture? That's what happened to me. And then you have to jump ship and start your patient base all over again. You lose that security. You lose that control. And security, control are two major reasons we explore today and why one may consider to become a practice owner. And particularly, we're talking about a squat practice. A squat practice is when you buy a building and you turn it into a dental practice. So whilst the themes we cover in today's episode with Dr. Shabnam Zai, it does apply to, buying an existing dental practice, because we talk about leadership, we talk about being the boss, being the principal. A lot of our advice, especially when we talk about money towards the end, is about when you're doing a startup or a squat. Hello, Protrusive. I'm Jazz Galati, and welcome back to your favorite dental podcast. You'll find out why I don't think owning a practice is right for me at this stage of life, and maybe you'll never be right for me. There are a few really good and really important reasons why I hate the idea of running my own practice. So you'll get to hear about that later, but then you get to hear about so many benefits and good things and why it might be the best thing that ever happened to you, as explained by Shabnam. The kind of themes that we cover are: is it right for you to be a practice owner? What are the sacrifices you have to make? What's the most difficult thing you have to do as a practice owner? How long would it take for you to make a profit? Does it mean that you may have to give up your clinical dentistry? What's the most challenging thing about being the boss? And so many other themes explored in this 1-hour podcast. Now, this episode is eligible for CE credits, as Protrusive Education is a PACE-approved education provider. And so when you answer the quiz at the end on the app, you will get your CE and CPD. Talking of the app has inspired today's Protrusive Dental Pearl. I like to give you a quick win at the start of every PDP episode. So as you know, we built this community of 4,000 of the nicest and geekiest dentists in the world. It's absolutely magic waking up and seeing all these notifications and all these cases being posted and all the advice that's being given and all the just camaraderie and kindness. I'm very careful about promoting the app outside of the podcast. We have a very niche audience here of either the most engaged and caring dentists in the world or dentists who want to be more engaged with what they do, and they've all found a home in Protrusive guidance. So if you're not part of it, check out protrusive.app. That's the website, www.protrusive.app. Make your account. At the time of publishing, it is free to make an account. There are paid plans available if you want amazing value that we offer, but you can just join the community and meet your tribe. You can then download the app on iOS and Android. But recently, Hannah Cooper, for a dental student in Slovakia, posted a case and she said, deep breath, this is my first anterior case, and she felt really beat up by it, okay? And I thought she's being very critical of herself, bless her, okay? So she did some good work, and what I love is that Hannah, she made herself vulnerable. She really put it out there as that, guys, can you help me? And the advice that was given, the reflections by the Protrusive, like shout out to the usual suspects, okay? Mohammed Muzaffari, an absolute legend on the app, so giving with his time. So just a massive shout out to Mohammed, massive shout out to Richard Coates. I love it every time you dissect a protocol, and I just love how deeply you think. Also, Richard did a special podcast episode just for us, private podcast on the app, all about finances and the importance of investing as a dentist, and saving money for the future. So you can check that out as well. And then Michael King. Again, Michael King is another one of those dentists on the platform which are just so giving with their time and expertise. So his is the pearl that I picked for today, okay? He says, right, something that we've echoed on this podcast before, and it's relevant for everyone, whether you're starting a new practice and then you're looking at other people or you're wanting to be better at clinical dentistry, whatever it may be. His advice was, in capital letters, do not compare your work to what you see see on social media. Much of what you see on social media is done by clinicians with thousands of hours of practice behind them. They're also often showing the very best work carried out under ideal conditions with superbly helpful and compliant patients. This is so true. More often than not, this is simply not comparable to the real world 99% of us work in a daily basis. Aspire always, okay? So whenever you see something online, respect it, be inspired, aspire towards it. Achieve occasionally, right? Understand that you will not be able to achieve that kind of result all the time, but occasionally when you put the graft in, you can do it. But being very aware that social media isn't quite real life, always be very aware. Michael continued to say that social media is one reason why many fantastic and very talented people from all walks of life and all professions suffer from imposter syndrome to the detriment of their mental health and the well-being of their clients. In my honest opinion, being so reflective so early in your career bodes well, and I certainly wish I had the confidence you have shown at that stage in my career. Carry on, carrying on. This lot here will always support and help. And Michael, I thank you so much for the support and help you offer to all Protrusive on the app. And yes, I do want to applaud Hannah myself for being brave enough to post a case that didn't go so perfect, and look at the learning. Look how much you gained from it. Look how much we all gained from it. So what are your take-home actions? Stop comparing yourself to stuff you see on social media and join Protrusive Guidance. Instead of dual scrolling on Instagram and Facebook and seeing all those toxic fights that happen on Facebook, come and join the nicest and geekiest dentist in the world on Protrusive Guidance. And with that, let's join the main episode with Shabnam. I'll catch you in the outro. Dr. Shabnam Zai, welcome to the Protrusive podcast. So nice to finally see you. Third time lucky. Childcare reasons we had to postpone today, and I'm so pleased to be speaking to you. How are you doing?
I'm really well, thank you, Jazz. How are you?
Yes, I'm very good. I don't know much about you, and I'm excited to find out. My provisional title is BossLady, right? Startup.
That, by the way, because that's not something that I really defined myself as. So when I saw that, I loved it.
Well, how do you define yourself? Let's start with that question, Shabnam. What defines Dr. Shabnam Zai? Tell us about yourself.
So I am a dentist, I'm a mum, I'm a practice owner, I'm a coach, I'm an educator, I'm a speaker now. I actually have my own podcast, and it's strange because, Jazz, if you spoke to me 2 years ago, a lot of those titles didn't exist. And I have really embraced me actually in these last few years. I think early on in my career, I really defined myself as a dentist. And what I've realized over the years is there's much more to me than dentistry. And I like investigating it now and experiencing it and teaching others about it, because I think you can get so much joy out of life. I get a little bit upset actually when some dentists don't enjoy work, because I really, really love dentistry. I always have done. 22 years in, I still really love being a dentist. But I think over that time, I've had to challenge myself and do different things to keep myself engaged and active and content, really.
I share this same thing about you, where I find it so sad when people are not engaged at work. If you look at the Gallup polls and stuff about workplace around the world, about something like 87% of people who work are disengaged with what they do. And so I think of a dentist who's while they're placing a composite, they're looking at their clock watching. That's like the worst position to be in, right? I want everyone to be really in love, thinking about the tubules, thinking about the enamel being etched, really engrossed in flow, right, on what they're doing. And so the mission of Protrusive last 6 years has always been fall in love with dentistry again. And I think part of that is continuing to learn, never staying stagnant, always changing things up for the betterment, not for the sake of changing up, but to be a better you than you were yesterday. So I definitely share that about you. And one thing I'm excited to unpack today is, you mentioned you're a mum, and a lot of the questions I have are centered around that, because the vast majority of practice owners that I know are male. There are more women dentists now than the male dentists, especially now 65-70% from what I'm hearing of dental intakes. Students are women, which is fantastic. But I want to know more about how you juggle it, that balancing act, that juggling act of motherhood, parenthood, and dentistry. So I guess, can I start with that? Can you tell me your journey about when you qualified, and then when you look back now, what were the stages that led you to where you are today? When did you first consider practice ownership? Did you fall into it? Was it always a drive that you had within you?
So when I qualified in my VT year, so for the younger listeners, that's FD, and my principal mentioned, in about 5 years' time, I might be selling. Would you be interested? And I was like, absolutely. And if I'm honest, Jazz, that was the first time I actually thought about owning a practice. It wasn't really a dream of mine. I just kind of fell into dentistry. In fact, I didn't want to be a dentist. I wanted to do chemistry. I just changed my mind at the last minute. And So he offered that, and I was quite excited. And I'm a bit of I love learning. So I threw myself into skilling up, and the desire to grow was always there. So I skilled up on composites, on Invisalign, on crown lengthening, implants, everything. And then time went on, and I was a really good associate, and I was building up the practice. And then I kept going back to my principal saying, oh, when should we become partners, or when are you going to sell? And time was going on. And if I'm honest, the defining factor for me was having my daughter. So I had my daughter, and when you have kids, you're like, I really want my kids to fulfill their dreams. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't fulfilling mine. I was waiting on someone else's decision before I moved forward with mine. And that's when I kind of thought I need to do something else in case this doesn't happen. So then I started looking at practice ownership, and it was a long process. I personally don't like doing things on my own, so I always wanted to do it in partnership. I had a couple of dentists that were interested in setting up a practice with me, and I spent 5 years looking to buy a practice. I'm based in Northwest London.
That's a long time.
Yeah, and I was 8 months pregnant viewing, and they're kind of looking at me going, are you sure you want to be doing this? And I kind of was a bit frustrated with that, because opportunities are rare. Practices in London are even rarer, especially where I wanted to live. So I couldn't really miss the opportunity just because I chose to have a child. So I kind of wanted to proceed anyway. And if I'm honest, there was a lot of negative comments about me being a female mother buying a practice, to the point where...
Who were they from? Who was saying these negative things?
So actually, interestingly, so when I found my location, I wasn't expecting to set up a squat. I was always looking to buy, and there's a lot of stuff I didn't know. And I look back on that time, and it was incredibly stressful and overwhelming, because I just didn't know what I didn't know. And I remember going around the showcase with a video of this location, being asked more questions and not knowing the answers to them. And I remember there was an accountant then, and then he was giving me the stats of how many squats failed. And then he started sending me articles on it afterwards. And I'm like, I'm trying to hire you as an accountant to facilitate this purchase, and you're actually telling me stuff not to do it. And he's like, I'm not sure you're a lady, like you've got young kids, like it's going to be a lot. And if I'm honest, at that moment, it kind of made me a bit more determined to do it.
It had the opposite effect. Very good. You know, as someone called Grant Cardone says, there are haters and then there are naysayers, okay? And so what this accountant, he falls into the category of a naysayer. He doesn't want you to fail, okay? But it's a bit like when you tell a spouse or someone you love or your parent you want to do something, and they just want you to have a nice, easy life, right? Because they love you. And they say, listen, are you sure you want to do this? You want to take it easy? They're not haters. They are naysayers. And you sometimes need to listen to that inner voice, sounds like you did, and ignore that, because that's just noise. You need to cut through that to get to your focus, get to your goal. And so tell us how that evolved and when you actually ended up getting a practice, and how did you come to that decision?
So after 5 years of looking to buy, we realized that we weren't finding things. And my business partner's husband actually said, why don't you set up your own? And we hadn't really considered it. At that time, you needed D1 planning permission. So we just started looking at sites, and we looked at sites. And then what happens when you've got 2 kids under 4 and you find your dream location? So Nikita and I sat down 6 years earlier and wrote down what we wanted from our dream practice. We wanted it to be half an hour to commute. We wanted it to be a private practice, not specialist. We even divided up. I was going to do compliance. She was going to do accounts. Like very early on, get that very clear out of the way. And we wanted 3 surgeries, step free, all these things, parking, and we got it. There's a park in Northwest London. So my dental practice is in a park, and it's 3 surgeries, step free, 6 minutes drive from my house.
Wow.
And it just happened. And Nikita just started maternity leave on Friday. So she was 9 months pregnant when we found it. We went to see it on the Monday. She gave birth on Thursday, and Friday I was at the showcase trying to figure out how to set up a practice.
I love that it came to be. And I think the lesson from that, from a lot of the books I read about motivation, self-development, one of the lessons I learned is we are goal-seeking beings. The way our brain works is that it homes in on a goal, and then you kind of have to set this goal and kind of let the universe work it out for you.
That's why I say, Jazz, write stuff down. I'm always writing stuff. Even I told you this podcast, I wrote it down, and then for whatever reason, it didn't happen. And I was like, it's going to happen. And it did.
And so once you had that vision, you trust the universe to make it happen. Your subconscious mind actually works behind the scenes to pick decisions to make it happen. I'm a big believer in that, actually. Now, are you someone who's quick at making decisions, or are you generally someone who labors about it, thinks about it? So tell us about that.
Yeah, so as I'm now a business owner, I am very quick at making decisions. What I realized, one of the most successful outcomes of building my practice was that we made such quick decisions that from signing the lease to finishing the build was 8 weeks. Like, it was fast. And at the time, I didn't appreciate that, but it came down to making quick decisions. I'm normally a researcher. I like to analyze things, read everything, consider things.
They seem counterintuitive. How can it be a researcher and analytical yet make quick decisions at the same time? Tell me about that.
So you divide and conquer. So you kind of decide on the things you need. So contracts that I'm signing, like I'm doing clinical waste at the minute and they're signing me in for 3 years. And I'm like, I don't want to sign for 3 years. I need to know those terms because I'm financial cost to the practice. What kind of door handles we have, that's a quick decision. Sometimes I go to my gut. I think nowadays I listen to my gut more than ever. There's been times in interviews when I've kind of given people the benefit of the doubt, saying, oh, I can train them, I can kind of build them up. And in my gut, I kind of knew at the interview it wasn't quite right. And it came true. So now I just stick to my gut. And I kind of know what's right for me. And I think that's what you need to know. So what's right for me might not be right for you. My values are different to you, although some of our values will overline, some don't. And as long as I pick what's right for me, and that's the best thing about Nikita and I, my business partner, we have very similar values. So if I'm not there and she makes a decision, I wholeheartedly know she's going to make the same decision as I am, which makes me feel very safe being in that partnership. And we have a very similar outlook on dentistry and the practice. So some people go into practice to make money, have a business. That wasn't our rationale. We did it for job security. We like doing dentistry a certain way, with certain materials. As mums, we had to kind of start work a bit late, finish a bit early. Our husbands also had demanding careers, and not all principals would allow you to do that in the practice.
It's that control you get, isn't it?
In the practices we in, because we'd worked there for so long and built up loyalty and that. But we knew in the future they were going to be bought out by corporates. And that practice that I was going to buy is now so expensive I couldn't afford it anyway. So I knew I was a brilliant associate. I built the practice up. But at the end of the day, none of that goodwill belonged to me. And then I worked in Wimpole Street. So I was working NHS one day, working on Wimpole Street the next day. It was like seeing an exempt patient and then charging £400 for a checkup. Like, when I say I've done it all, I just went out there and tried stuff. And what it made me realize is that for me, the patient's the most important thing. And for me to be able to control their environment, how they're treated, kind of really just building what I wanted, how I want my patients to be treated, and have that job security for myself. That was the reason I set up a practice, so I could practice dentistry how I like to do it without anyone telling me I can't. And I will take the financial risk for that because that's okay at the end of the day.
I like the theme of security there. People often go in about, okay, how can I eventually make profit and then have my exit plan, retirement plan, and all that, I guess, comes with it. But to have that control and security, and there's various reasons we could explore. Someone might buy a practice, but just pedaling back a bit, one quote that you reminded me of when you were talking about being quick to make decisions is one of my favorite quotes, is that successful people are quick to make decisions and slow to change them again. And then unsuccessful people are slow to make decisions and then very quick to then change them, basically.
Yeah, the thing is, if you're not making a decision, is the worst decision. The people are so, I meet so
people who are sat on the fence.
Yeah, they're so worried about making the wrong choice. What I've realized in life is bad stuff happens to me all the time. People look at me and they think that, oh, wow, you've got it all. You're married, 2 kids, got your practice. I've had an incredibly hard life. But at the end of the day, I don't treat it as a barrier to me. I just think life happens. How I react to it, when stuff does happen, how I manage it, that's what makes me successful. I know that whatever happens in life, I'm going to negotiate it because I have to. What other choice do I have? And at the end of the day, sometimes these things happen for us, not to us, And a lot of dentists I speak to, because I didn't know what I didn't know. And if I'm honest, I could have enjoyed the process of setting up a practice a lot more if there was a bit more guidance. But at that time, there weren't these amazing Facebook groups, there weren't these podcasts, there weren't all these people out there mentoring. Like, none of this existed then. And actually, people gave me very superficial advice on how to set up a practice. So I didn't really know till I did it. And now I realize 70% I could have done in advance. I could have enjoyed it a lot more. And it was like I wanted a checklist because I'm quite protocol driven. And there wasn't one. So I made my own checklist. And now I help other dentists and I give them my checklist and I just take that pressure off them. But actually, nowadays with ChatGPT, you could just type in and say, give me a checklist of how to set up a squat practice. So was the value in what I give them isn't really the checklist. It's that understanding and that mindset that it's possible. Showing them how to navigate those obstacles when they face them. Because when I was building my squat, my son got pneumonia. He was in hospital for 3 days. Like, what do I do? Stop building? No, I was still going to work. I have capacity to manage that, but that's life. And you just have to kind of embrace that there's hardness in it. And running a practice is incredibly hard. I tell people that all the time. It's not easy, but I'm a different person to who I was 7 years ago. And there is no course in the planet that could teach me the skill set that I have now. So for someone that likes to grow, it was good for me. And what I've learned most is that in dentistry, whilst clinical dentistry is good, I love clinical dentistry. I still do lots and lots of courses and masters and everything. But But actually, we need to learn to invest in ourselves a bit more, in our own skill sets, like manage ourselves as people better. And I think one of the questions you wanted to ask me was about what do I find hardest as a practice principal? And I'll be honest, the hardest thing for me is actually time management. Because as soon as you manage your time well, like you allocate time to a job, I'm the kind of person, I just get it done, you know? But if you don't have the time for it, then you have to start prioritizing things. And so you
Well, that's what it is. Time management is simply priorities. If someone says, I don't have time for the gym, it's because gym is sixth. They only have time for 5 priorities and gym is a 6th priority or a 7th priority. When you make something a priority that's in your top priorities, time is no longer an issue anymore. I learned that slowly over time. So you have to make it a priority and you have to be a little bit smart and delegate and allow a team to be empowered to do, all the things so they can lift it off your shoulders so you can actually do the bigger picture things. Have you read the book, The E-Myth Revisited?
No.
Have you heard about it?
I have, yeah.
So it's about everyone when they're in a business, the technician, right? So the technician is like the dentist, right? The dentist who's doing day in, day out, they're doing the restorations, their associate going home, not having to worry about it, okay? Just because they're good at doing an MOD composite or an onlay or a veneer doesn't mean that they'll be a great manager, okay? And just because if you're a great manager doesn't mean you'll make a great entrepreneur. So when you are in your position, you kind of have to either wear all 3 hats, which is very difficult. You have to be the technician, i.e. you're working clinically in your Scott, you're being the manager, and you're being the entrepreneur, the marketing and sales behind everything, right? The actual vision, okay? So to do those 3 are very difficult. So which one of those 3 do you identify yourself with? And then where do you get the other 2 varieties from in your business?
So it's interesting. So my practice is now 7 years old and I wear all those hats. And when I first started out, I wasn't going to do marketing because that was Nikita's thing. We made that list 7 years earlier. And what I found was I'm actually very good at marketing, networking and building the practice. In fact, I think 30% of patients come to the practice because of me and the random things I do. I can't even quantify what I do.
Tell us more about that. Can you tell us 30%? Is that Google AdWords? Is that you going to networking events? Is it you putting a poster up in a local newsagents? Like, what do you mean by your attribution?
So when they come to the practice, they say, how did you hear about the practice? They heard about it through me. So whether it's a school mum or the local cafe owner or going to a networking event or some of my old dentists, my old trainees, I used to be a VT trainer, they come to my practice. So patients come from everywhere. I have a lot of patients that travel really far as well to come to see me, which is really nice. And so they're just me. And that's why I tell people about dentistry. Like, so many people are worried about squats opening up. I opened my squat up, another one opened up. Since I've opened up, maybe like 10 have opened up within a 2-mile radius. And when I say close, like within 500 meters of my door, like very close. I'm not worried because they're not me. It's not a female-led practice in a park. It's not me. And what I give and what they give is different. And their patients are really happy with them and my patients are really happy with me and my practice and my ethos and my vision. And my practice is very much designed how I wanted my practice to feel. And people that like that, I kind of get the patients that suit my practice, which is amazing when before that didn't always happen. Going back to those hats. So recently I've kind of been sitting down and, whilst I can do everything, I'm competent at everything. What am I really genius at? That's what I really sat down and thought about. And as a result, I've actually decided I'm going to do more clinical days because my genius is with patients. I love that interaction. It gives me so much joy. That's what I love. My business partner, she actually realized she likes doing more of the management. So now we're changing our roles slightly where she's taking some of the managerial roles off me that I've been doing for the last 6 years and she's doing it and she's actually really enjoying it. And what she's good at doing is outsourcing and delegating. So now she's getting other people to do the menial tasks and then she's doing more of the oversight marketing. And you don't know until you try stuff, right? So we've just learnt over time. And as I get older, I really love patients. Even when I'm not seeing patients, I'm in my office chatting to the ones at reception. And, so yeah, that's my genius. I'd say now.
How many days clinical are you now?
I'm doing 2 clinical days a week.
See, yeah, you would do 6 days, right? And so a lot of people who love dentistry, they think that, okay, if I want to love dentistry, then I want to continue doing it. And then they might open a practice and then very soon they might realize, hang on, everything else is collapsing because I'm too clinical. I also need to be a business owner, I need to take a step back and work on the business rather than in the business. And that could be a potential mistake. And then I heard somewhere, this is just Facebook, right? University of Facebook, where it says that once you get to a point when you own 4 practices, you either have to really scale down, if that's even a word, your clinical activities or give up your clinical. And the magic number was 4 apparently. Any thoughts on that?
So my aim was never to have more than one practice. Like I said, I just wanted job security. I wanted a space where I could treat patients how I wanted. So my aim was never to go more than one. I was talking to a dentist recently who's working 4.5, 5 days, and he wants to set up his own practice. And I said, work 4 days from now. And he was kind of like, and I said, you need to get your head out of the hourly rate thing that if I cut a day, I'm losing money, because you can spend that day investing it in yourself, building your dream to make it a fruition sooner. And actually that time you're going to get back tenfold. And when you have a practice, you need that day for admin anyway. So just start setting yourself in that rhythm now. So then when it happens, it's natural for you. And yeah, when I set up the practice, I was working 6 days a week because the bank wouldn't give me a loan if I gave up my associate job. So I was working in Wimpole Street, I was working in my BT practice, and I was working in my clinic. And that was hard. My son was 2, my daughter was 5, but I had to prepare my family for it. We had discussions. I built up the support network so I could be successful. I think when you have a business, you have to be realistic of what you need from your family. So like now, like on Monday, I went for a date with my daughter. We went to Leicester Square, we watched a movie, went to Chinatown for dinner. You know, on purpose, I prioritize having a date with my kids. I don't do that every day because obviously I'm busy, but they don't need me a lot. I realize they just need me a little. And I've always told them, if you need me, just tell me. So my son called me the other day and said, "Oh, Mummy, can you take me to football one Saturday?" And I was like, "Sure." It's not going to be this Saturday because I'm working, but I will take you. And then I do. I keep my promises. Same with my husband. So I kind of have that communication. And that, again, something I've learned. You meant saying, how do I manage my family life? I just have to be honest. And also, my family want me to be successful. Like initially, I thought I was taking me away from my family. I'm working more days than I was before. But I knew in the future, like now, I can close my diary and go to sports day. I can drop my son to school today. You know, like I actually have more time with them now. And
as a parent, I think it's about quality of time rather than quantity of time. Like if you're just giving 4 hours in a day, but then you're also doing the house chores while you're looking after them and stuff, that's not focused time. It's much better to give them 1.5 hours of really focus, eye to eye, you know, really every facet is explored in your relationship during that, rather than multitasking, trying to do the chores and trying to do emails as you're also looking after them, making them do homework. It's much better to do it, you know, like you suggested.
But Jazz, I didn't know that. I figured it out. And that's why I'm now doing these kind of things, because you said you didn't know me. I don't need anyone to know me. I'm not like really want to be famous or anything, but I just want to see people what's possible. And there's people that have done it before you in fact, as a dentist I was working with, and she wanted to buy the practice she was working in. But she messaged me, she said, I actually don't know what a principal does. So she's like, I'm just being honest, I work as a dentist, I don't know what they do. So I said, sure, I'll tell you that. And then she was having some issues with her practice manager. And anyway, so I ended up coaching her. And as well as building the skill set of being a principal, I think you need to pretend to be a principal before you become one. So you need to treat yourself like a business. How would a principal act in this situation? Anyway, it transpires the practice she was working in, after asking some challenging questions to the practice manager actually did fraud on the practice for about 50 grand. Which came to light. She left, and I was like, look, you were going to buy this practice. Anyway, we sat down and kind of made her goals and everything. And actually, over the course of a year and a half, like she was renting a flat, and she actually really wanted to have another baby. She wanted to buy a dream house. Like there's a lot of things she wanted to do. And you know, having that time to sit down and really invest in herself. She invested an hour every week. She made, like, I went to see her in February in Manchester, and I was in there in her new house next to this big kitchen island that she'd always dreamed of, carrying her baby. And I was like, 2 years ago, this was impossible. You told me this was impossible. And she said, yeah, I can't believe it. Like, just can't believe it. Sometimes when you take a step back, you can actually take a bigger step forward. And people sometimes in dentistry just in the routine of just going to work, coming home, doing the things, going to work the next day, have to do this, have to do that. And actually that's kind of, you lose a bit of the joy. And actually sometimes when you celebrate little things on the way, the little things, I'm not saying you need to go on a tropical holiday. Like I like just having a cup of tea in my garden. That's a win for me, you know. It doesn't have to be massive, but just planting those little bits of joy in your day, it builds your confidence. There's a way, and people can help you see that for yourself. And I don't know if you've ever had a coach, but having a coach,
I do.
Yeah, I can tell.
It's very empowering. The role of a coach is to get it out of you. Everything I'm realizing now is already inside me. All the things I need to do, I already know I need to do them, okay? But a coach is just surfacing. It's surfacing, and accountability is real magic in that, I think. Now, a couple of themes that... Yeah, sorry.
I didn't have anyone to help me do that. And I feel like now, try not to regret, but I could have done this years ago. But it's okay. It happens when it happens. I'm happy where I am.
You could have done it perhaps with faster, better, cheaper, all those things, right? All the benefits of having someone as a mentor, as a coach. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be about dentistry as well. That's what I'm trying to tell people. It's like we define ourselves too much as being a dentist. And I think now that I'm trying not to do that, being a dentist is part of my life, but I'm also a business owner. I'm also a wife and a sister and a mum. And, I try and be whole.
I love that. And I think literally today I shared on my story, I want to just take 20 seconds just to mention this, right? It's on my story now. I shared it from someone. Is that how we are taught to measure success is, job title is like a pie chart, job title, and then the other half is salary, right? A better measure of success, which I wholeheartedly believe in, is like there's like 8 pizza slices, if you like, to this pie, right? Good relationships, financial health, free time, making a difference, lifelong learning, liking what you do, career, and good health and well-being. That, for me, is a much better measure of success. And I think it goes in tandem with what you say. I mean, that should be like blown up and put everywhere. And I'm loving the themes that you're exploring. One thing I want to touch on is I get asked all the time, Shabnam, Jazz, I see you have leadership qualities. Look, I was president of SUDS at dental school. I've always taken on leadership roles. I've always been happy to. I'm a leader in Team Protrusive. There's 10 people in Team Protrusive now. I manage all these people, okay? So I'm an entrepreneur in that. Thank you so much. So Shabnam's applauding. So I have all those things. It can get very busy running this education business and whatnot. And I love it. I love what I do. And so people always tell me, Jazz, why don't you run a practice? And 2 reasons. One is I already have my project. I already have something that I get fulfillment from. And for me, running a practice would be a distraction from my bigger aim of making dentistry tangible. But number 2, and this is the one I really want to pick your head on, is I absolutely categorically hate compliance. Like I hate reading contracts. I'll be honest with you, I don't even read any contract that associate principal. I go by trust, right? And the day that I have to pick up the contract and read it, that's the end. Like you might as well rip it in half, right? I'm old school, I'm old fashioned that way, okay? And I know that's not the way to do it. I'm not condoning it. The point I'm trying to make, Shabnam, is I've got enough self-awareness to know what I'm like, what my values are, and I am going to be miserable and terrible at compliance. The only way I could do it is like you, by teaming up with someone whereby the other person, like in my practice I work in now as a very happy associate, Chris does all the boring stuff, the compliance stuff, right? And John does more the clinical director kind of stuff, right? That I can see myself doing with someone, but I just hate the compliance. So do you think there's a certain personality type that would suit practice ownership and all those extra responsibilities of compliance, CQC, all that kind of BS that I absolutely hate? Hello, YouTube Protruserati. I know you're watching on YouTube and I hope you're enjoying this episode so far. But I wanted to highlight, in case you don't know yet, we have an amazing viewing experience on protrusive.app, our website, our network, our platform. So I just want to spend a minute to show you what this looks like. On the left side, you see the navigation, and when you join the app, you get a 1-minute video tour of the entire network. Now, in terms of where the magic happens, that's in the Protrusive community, because you might come for the content, but you'll stay for the community of the nicest and geekiest dentists in the world. We have all these polls, we have a chat group, there's always active chats and dentists helping dentists. And really what I want to do is create a really supportive environment that's not like the environment we have on Facebook, and is built on the values of niceness and geekiness. If you are nice and geeky, you belong here. Now, to make this a safe space, we have a manual process of approval. We actually verify that you are a dental professional before you get in here. So we have hundreds of applicants a day. So if it's been about 2 days and you haven't heard anything, either something's in your junk or you need to reach out. If you're still waiting to join your tribe, email marie@protrusive.co.uk. That's MARI@protrusive.co.uk, and she'll investigate what's happened. Now, all the videos you have on YouTube are also on here, but you actually have some extra ones for free that you don't have on YouTube. So you get some bonus content that's not on YouTube. And actually for the future, I'm not taking things out of YouTube, but some things are not appropriate for the wider public, and I want to sort of safeguard that information, which is like dentist talk, if you like. So that's why a lot of the content is only here and not on YouTube. So you're kind of missing out if you're not on here. That's why I'd love for you to join there. And if you join one of our paid plans, then what you get is access to the CE quiz, like this one, and you can get CPD or CE certificates, and also you get our premium notes. So these are a great aid memoir or revision for an episode to really cement your learning. And whilst we have ads and YouTube places ads on YouTube, we don't have that on our network. So for the paid plan, you get to see all of the premium notes without any of the ads. And of course, you get to support Team Protrusive and help us to continue what we're doing. I'm just going to gloss over the Protrusive Vault, which has all our infographics and downloadables. These are all our masterclasses at this moment in time, and we're always planning to add more. And if you look at them, there's about 1, 2, 3, it's about 7 of them. But actually, if you look at the replay section, some of the live masterclasses that I've done and some of the training that people pay for on other websites is all on there, included as part of the masterclass subscription. And if you're a student, don't fear, we have a special section for you with all the student notes, which anyone can access. So for example, here is one on exodontia. So it's all there waiting for you on Protrusive Guidance. Please head over to the website, which is protrusive.app. Make an account on your browser. This could be Safari, Chrome, however you want to do it. And once you've made your login, then you can download the iOS or Android app and then log in through there. So the reason to make the subscription primarily on the website first is that you get access to a free trial, which you don't get if you do make an account on Android, iOS. If you make it on the website, you get access to the free trial and you get our best price if you sign up through protrusive.app. So our best deals and free trials are only on protrusive.app. Of course, we always put the link below in the description. And thank you so much for enjoying our videos on YouTube. But it's now finally time to level up your experience. Back to the episode.
So I do compliance, okay? When I worked in Wimpole, I remember they had their CQC inspectors.
You're far too fascinating.
And I was like,
how?
Sticking things on the wall for like Korai, and I was like putting this above the taps, and he's like, what are you doing? And I was like, you're going to lose marks for this. And I came in the morning early and I did, like I say, I was a superstar associate. But it takes a lot of time. Compliance takes 8 to 10 hours a week. I'm a bit of a control freak. I can't delegate stuff, but you need good people to delegate to. What I would say is if you don't like compliance, it's okay. Now there's so many things out there that you can delegate it. It's a task, it can be delegated. You can hire someone to do it. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether you set it up yourself in calendar tasks or whether you have a compliance portal to do, there is a human being that has to do it. If you don't want to do it, you just have to hire someone to do it. And you've got to hire someone that's meticulous and organized and persistent, because getting people to sign policies every year is soul destroying. Getting people to send me CPD certificates, like my associates are great, they send it to me, but I have to compile it, I have to organize it. It doesn't bring me joy.
Same here. And I would absolutely hate to that. That would completely sap the fun out of practice ownership for me.
But people say what practice ownership, but I was talking to another dentist the other day, and he unfortunately has scoliosis of his spine. He's just qualified and he's about to start his FD. And he's thinking about setting up a practice. And I said, but why practice? Why not something else? You don't have to do business with dentistry. Dentistry could be your career and you could do something. I know people that are dentists and then, have other things they do.
Well, dentistry is vocational, but if you look at physics, right, some stat like 70 to 90% of those who study physics go into finance. Right. And so, if you think of it like that, then yeah, when you do dentistry, you get all these skills and evidence-based and being analytical and sociable and personal, but you can pivot.
In COVID, I am a dentist, I'm a practice owner. Overnight, everything stopped. My son was shielding, so I couldn't even do clinical. I didn't do clinical for nearly a year. So in that situation, I was really vulnerable. I couldn't work as an associate. I was basically my receptionist for my practice, and the practice was actually shut for 4 months, nearly 5, I think. And it made me realize how vulnerable I was. And I was really upset with myself that I didn't have any other external income.
Do you think that having a business like practice gives you that extra layer of protection?
No, I felt that I didn't. So I was a private practice. I got no funding, nothing. It made me vulnerable. I had to find money to pay the bills, to pay the staff. I had no income coming in. It was a squat.
So you're disappointed in yourself, but then based on that experience, have you changed anything about your sources of income or anything like that to shield yourself to, God forbid, a COVID part 2?
And I'm looking to buy an investment property. I set up my online course teaching dentists how to set up their squat practice, and I now coach people as well.
Okay, good. So that's diversifying. And so, you got your business hat now and you've been through that period of being a practice owner during a time where nothing was working. And so you've decided that, okay, you can't put all your eggs in one basket, which is the lesson there, basically. Have you ever done an exercise like Strengths Finder?
Yeah.
Have you done that, right? And so, or going back to that self-awareness and knowing your strengths and knowing what you're good at. One strength which I think is really important to have as a practice owner is managing people, right? And being able to listen to them and inspiring them and just generally being a people person. Are you and your partner both that way minded, or is one of you better with dealing with your team and having conversations, those really important conversations with your team? How do you split that up? And then my follow-up question will be, as everyone has said who's ever owned a practice, staff is the most stressful and most difficult thing.
Yes, definitely. So when I first thought of a principal, I thought of someone very alpha, very dominating, very like, this is how we're doing it, very dominating. And that's not me. So that's why I thought I could be a principal. I'm more collaborative. I have a lot of empathy. And firing people for me was very difficult. I do the firing in the practice. And the reason I do it is because I wanted to challenge myself. So I had to find a way to do it that I felt comfortable with. And the way I did it is with metrics. So I measure things, I have my values, and often because I measure things so well, the people that are on probation normally come to me and say, I'm not doing very well, I think I should leave, which is great, right? So I found a system now where people themselves identify that they don't fit with my practice. Not that I never hire anyone that's bad. I have lovely staff, but they identify themselves, they don't have the right values to fit with how the rest of the team works. So that kind of has happened over time. I'm more soft and chatty and talk a lot, and sometimes the message gets lost in all the chat. Nikita's a lot more direct. And I think to be a leader, you need to be more direct. You just have to be very clear, and then you have to follow up with it in written words. I lead my way. I'm very much a team builder. I'm very collaborative, but I think Nikita is much better at getting things done. Does that answer your question?
It does, but then what is the most difficult scenario you've had surrounding staffing and people management? Can you share a story that might shed some light to these difficulties that one must expect to face if they own a practice?
I think it's just, I have high standards. Like, I've had nurses in the past that don't want to perform to my standards, and I don't want to come down to them. So I just say, this is what I'm expecting. And then I go, this is what I would like you to do. I probably think the hardest thing for me is making time to have those conversations. You need to have them regularly. You need to document them. That's the hardest thing I find. If you document things well, then, you know, from a HR perspective, everything is easy because everything's been documented. You've shown you've given them opportunities and things like that. Nikita laughs at me. She's like, whenever we have a problem in the practice, I'm like, oh, isn't it great that happened? And she's like, what do you mean it's great that happened? And I said, well, now we know how to deal with it. She's like laughing. I always happen to see the good side in everything that happens to me, even if it's terrible. So I think that's why I'm struggling to find a particular terrible thing, because I don't feel anything.
I think it's because, like you said, you know, hiring and firing and the fact that people don't meet your standards. But then again, you use that as an opportunity to grow and systematize or improve the protocol so that, you know, something never happens again. And so that's a lesson in itself. I want to talk about the forever associate, because that's a trend I'm seeing. I'm a fan of it, obviously, because I'm in that category where I'm like, I'm happy to be an associate. I went through that period that you discussed earlier in the episode whereby I was very happy working in Summertown, Oxford, beautiful practice, lovely patients. I loved it there, right? I was looking for a property to buy near there. Me and my wife were going to move there, kind of thing. But a corporate took over, okay, and everything turned to shit. It just went upside down. The culture was lost. It just sapped out all the energy. I was miserable. I went from absolutely thriving and happy to miserable, okay? The clinical dentistry, I was still the same, but the environment and the culture shifted so much that I had to leave. But I'm very good at making, like I said, quick decisions. I recognize, okay, this isn't for me anymore. And so I moved on from there. And so I like the idea that you said about the whole security and protection for any associate. We are left vulnerable because the day the practice gets sold or changes hands, you are not in control of that anymore. So I completely respect that you said that. However, there is a very happy cohort of associates who earn well, they get home, they don't have to worry about the light is not working or the suction pump, so that's not working, a recurring theme in our practice at the moment, and they can just not have to worry about that aspect of running the practice. The patients are pretty much given to them, although nowadays associates are really good at bringing their own patients in. What advice would you give to these happy associates? You know, they're happy, right? Do you think they should change because you strongly feel that everyone should have a business? What are your thoughts on that?
So I would say I became a better associate once I became a principal, because I can see both sides now and I understand the challenges a principal faces. I also can see the opportunities. So when I went back as an associate, I was different. I printed my own price list. I organized my own open days. I promoted myself in a way that I never had before. I just kind of sat there and expected things to come to me. I just do whatever was there. I was a bit more proactive, thinking, actually, no, I have more control over the situation. I can make it even better. I can improve things here. I can improve the materials and the equipment. I always had brought my own equipment anyway, but I brought more things that I like, things that I didn't want to be without. So I felt more happy as an associate because my clinical dentistry was beautiful. It doesn't matter where I'm doing it. So I'm a better associate because I became a principal. Saying that if you're a forever associate, just be happy with it. You know, I think a lot of people just wish that, oh, I should do this, I should do that. That dentist that I mentioned that bought the lovely house and had the baby, at the end of the day, like, maybe practice ownership at that moment in time wasn't right. Maybe it will be in the future. Like, be open to it, but don't say definitely no, but don't say definitely yes. Maybe you'll be an associate forever and that's going to be the right decision. I think you need to know what your priorities are in life, and then you have to see whether the practice ownership aligns with that. And if it does, you do it. And if it doesn't, you don't, and you be happy with it. I think people regret things too much, and I think you just should be happy with what you want and don't feel you have to compare yourself to other people and do what others are doing.
I think there's totally a place for the happy forever associate. However, one thing I will say is that, I agree with you that you don't have to have a practice, but one thing I strongly believe in as a personal value is that everyone should have a project or projects on the go, right? And so I never really resonated with the term goals. People always say, hey, Jazz, what's your goal with Protrusive? And I'm like, I'm just enjoying making content and serving and making dentists fall in love with dentistry again. But what is your goal? And then I never understood that until I read the book Psycho-Cybernetics, and my back's on mults. And a lot of people don't get it when they say goals, but then he said, if you switch the word goals for projects, suddenly it makes sense to you. And I've always had projects. So Protrusive started as a project, right? Now I've got Intaglio, making mentorship accessible to all dentists. I've got the education. I've always got these projects on the go. So even if you're a happy associate, I feel as though to have something that you can call your own, something to build on. Now, this could be a really good gardening project, right? It could be that. It doesn't have to actually even make you money or anything, but having projects on the go, something to really think about, something to pour your love and energy into. If it's a business, great. That's amazing as well. But I'm a big fan of everyone having projects and not just staying stagnant, always having something to work towards.
Definitely. And I think you said it really well, because that's what I'm saying. You shouldn't just be a dentist. You should be a person. You should have hobbies. You should invest in your health. I was working 5 days a week. I cut down to 4. And on that 4th day, I said, I just want to improve my clinical skills. I'm not quite sure how I want to do it. I did a course with a guy called Richard Porter, and he was...
Legend.
Yeah, I think he was a registrar at the time at St. George's. He said, you should apply for the clinical assistant job. I was like, okay. So I did. I didn't get it the first time. I got it the second time. So every other Monday, I used to be on the restorative department with him and Peter Briggs. And Peter Briggs was actually assisting me do an endo with a microscope. It's crazy.
Wow.
And it was a great experience clinically. I wasn't getting paid for it, but I was investing that time in myself for clinical skills. I could have paid to go on a course. On the other Monday was my mum's day. I used to take my mum out shopping, doctor's appointments, whatever. So that was my project, to keep my mum well and happy, and to also improve my clinic. And I think you can do both. But I did it by reducing a clinical day, but I cut down from 5 to 4. What was interesting, my income didn't change.
Oh, I hear that all the time. People always say that you can go from 5 to 4 to 3.5 and income stays the same. And I think the reason for that is because you're more focused, you have more energy, you can actually put more thought into it, you can treat and plan better, the clarity that you have. And also by the time that you get enough experience to be able to do that, you already have stability in your books, and you're able to offer treatments that are more refined and bigger treatment plans for the sake of the fact that you're doing more comprehensive dentistry.
Yeah.
You're diagnosing better.
And also, I think you just need to identify something that you're not good at and maybe just work on it. So for me, public speaking was an absolute, hated it, just felt terrible, go red, didn't know what I was saying, just terrible. And so I started talking to school kids. I see kids when it's too late. I take teeth out. I get really upset by preventable disease. It just upsets me. So I said, right, I'm going to go to all the schools, because none of the kids could get NHS. I was like, I'm going to teach them preventative dentistry. So I did. So I started talking to nurseries, and I talked to like 15 kids, and I told Nikita, and I said, I wouldn't it be great if by the end of the year we could speak to 1,000 kids. So I was like, right, let's do it. So it's like a mini project, like you said. So we started to contact some more nurseries, some more schools, and then Nikita accidentally booked me an assembly. So from going to like 20 kids, I went to 180. And Jazz, by the end of the year, I spoke to 3,500 kids.
Wow.
And when people say, how did you do that? I was like, I don't know. I didn't know how. I just wanted to speak. That's all I wanted to do. And by doing that, I got more confident speaking. And then I just started putting myself out there and just trying to do these other things, where now that's not a fear for me anymore. Now I feel confident speaking anywhere. I go to the dentistry show, podcast, whatever. I'm happy anywhere now. And now I'm thinking, what should I do next? And, that's kind of just ticking things off. I wanted to be better at swimming. 7 years I've been saying I want to be better at swimming. I wasn't actually doing anything about it. This afternoon, I have a swimming lesson with my son. He's the best cheerleader for me. He's like, Mummy, you're doing really well. Because he is the one that told me, he said, well, if you want to be better, you have to practice. And I went, you're right, I do. And, so I think of inclusive parenting a lot. I don't think it's work and my family, like they're separate, this or that. It's this and that. I do an open day. I'm designing a poster. I asked my daughter, what do you think of this poster? She's a great critic for me. She's got great taste. And you don't realise that they pick stuff up. Like my daughter, she's 13 now, but when she was in primary school, she set up a slime business. She said, I want to set up a slime business. I went, okay. So I bought her. I said, I'm investing £20 of materials and you start the business. But Jazz, she made a logo. She figured out her price list. She did upsells. She had these little...
That's amazing.
She made different colours. She scented them. She made only a certain number of certain colours because she knew they were the most popular. I'm not joking. The day of the sale, parents were coming to my house with cash in an envelope to reserve colours before the sale.
That's amazing. What an amazing life lessons, entrepreneurship you're teaching your daughter.
£300 profit. I was like, what? This is really good. I'm not doing it anymore. I was like, well, you've got a good business. She's like, I don't want to do it.
What an excellent experience.
How did you learn to do that? And she said, oh, I just know. But she didn't just know. She's just picked stuff up over time and just, so you become a role model and they think things are possible. So you need to be a role model to your kids. Even if you don't have a practice, you can be a role model that you can renovate your house, or whether you just become good at cooking. My husband couldn't really cook that much and now he does. Nothing's fixed. You can always be better at whatever you want to be better at.
It's having that growth mindset. Everything you're saying is totally revolving around that. And I love the fact that you involve your children in what you do. That's amazing. And going swimming today and having that quality time. Again, it's quality time with your child, which is great. And so let's touch on parenthood. A lot of times when we are, we're having children, my wife was pregnant and I'm starting this business. Or, I often hear, we had our third child the same week we bought our second practice. Like, I hear this all the time, right? So we're at that age where you're having kids and then you're also starting new businesses, new ventures at the same time. So it's never easy. It's all these ebbs and flows and fantastic highs and terrible lows and that kind of stuff. What advice would you give to someone who has identified themselves as, okay, I think I want to do this. I want to become a principal, but they're worried about juggling that family life. I know we touched on it earlier, but any other concrete advice you want to give to someone who wants to juggle parenthood? Any advice you can give them with practice ownership?
Yeah, so you can only control what you can control. And when a practice becomes available to buy or a squat practice, you can't control that. So you've got to decide, do you put your life on hold because of something that may happen in the future? It depends how big a passion it is for you, how much of a priority it is. If it's a massive priority, you're just going to make it happen regardless. So I think be really honest with yourself about what your priorities are in your life, and that will help you make the decision. And life just happens. You can plan everything. I meet so many dentists that are scared to get things wrong, and I'm like, you're going to get things wrong. Just accept you're going to do things wrong. It's okay. And as soon as you let go of the fact that there is no perfect time, like I know someone that bought a practice and then got a problem in his ear and then couldn't work for 8 weeks. He had to have surgery, couldn't work. Imagine owning a practice and not being able to work for 8 weeks. You don't plan that kind of stuff, but it happens. You just have to have the mindset that whatever happens, you're going to manage it, you're going to do the best you can, and what more can you do? And you have to be honest, sometimes practices don't work out, and that's okay. But if tomorrow anything happened to my practice, I still pinch myself when I walk into my practice. I still can't believe it's mine. You experience something, it's never taken away from you. It's just a foundation that you're going to build on in the future, and you build more things or different things, based on that experience. So business side is hard, but you need to identify what is it that you really want in life. And I think that's the reflection that everyone should do earlier, because you can actually just be at peace with yourself. And having kids, and we found the practice, Nikki was 9 months pregnant.
Yeah, like I said, always the way when I hear it. Well, you mentioned on the business, final chapter of this podcast, let's talk about money, right? How much cash in the bank should you have before even thinking, okay, I've got enough that I'm going to take this risk? How much do you potentially need to borrow? Obviously, everyone's financial backgrounds and scenarios and bank of mum and dad and all that kind of stuff can factor, a multitude of ways. But what kind of anchor could you give to someone who's perhaps a young dentist and has no idea? At one stage, you probably had no idea how much money is enough.
Yeah, totally. So I laugh, Jazz, when people say, how much does it cost to set up a squat? I laugh because it's completely the wrong question to be asking. The reason I say that is because how much your practice is going to cost depends on you. Depends on what kind of practice you want to have, what location you want to set up in. Do you want to have a corporate? Do you want a single practice? It depends on you. What is your vision? If you're happy with a very cheap chair and minimal materials, your costs are going to be very different to mine. I could have done a 2-surgery practice when I set mine up. I chose to do one in the end because I wanted the nice chair and I wanted the thickened Corian work surface. I wanted a really nice finish. And so everyone has a pot, and how you allocate that pot is up to you. Okay. So if you're going to be setting up a squat, you're going to be putting down at least 30% deposit. Okay. If you're buying a practice, it's 10%. Now, how much you're going to borrow and how much does it cost to set up a squat? So squat, roughly 2-surgery squat costs between 250 to $500,000. Now you're going to be like, that's a very big variation.
And is that a freehold or?
No, leasehold. Just the
leasehold, okay.
Stuff, yeah. And the thing that dictates the cost of the practice the most, the biggest deciding factor for cost for a practice build is the location. If it's listed building, if it's over 2 stories instead of 1 floor, What are the supplies like? Electricity, water, pump, piping, things that you don't even know about, that kind of stuff. If the logistics for the supplies aren't there and you have to bring them in, that's going to make it expensive. I know a practice that was on a hill and they had to pump the water up, and that pump was a massive issue for them and it increased the cost a lot. I spoke to a dentist who's very competent and he messaged me when he was thinking of setting up his squat and he was in the process of doing it. And I touched base with him recently, a year or so later, and it took him over a year to set up the squat. And initially he was thinking it was going to be about 270. In the end, it cost him over 350. And I remember at the end, he was like going, do I really need to buy an ultrasonic bath? And I was like, come on, do not cut corners now. At the end point, you're like, how much do I spend on this sofa? How much do I spend on pens and paper and printers? And, there's a lot of things you forget because there is no checklist, like I said. So there's a lot of things you need to factor in. The biggest thing I would tell everyone on this podcast to do currently is find out how much you can borrow. Like, people are asking how much does it cost to set up a squat, but how much actually can you borrow? Like, if your budget is only going to give you like 300, then you wouldn't consider anything more than that. So it's almost like when you're buying a house, go to a broker, give them your initial financial figures, get a kind of mortgage in principle, find out roughly what they would be happy to lend you, and then that's your budget, and then you kind of shop accordingly. And if that budget doesn't align with your vision of the practice you want, then you need to do something about your income.
Great. That's it. I'm very happy with how to think about that. I hear all the time that when those who choose to start a squat, so a brand new practice, because of how long it takes, could take 6 months, could take a year, could take longer, they're working as an associate while that's being done and they're visiting the project, visiting the site and overseeing how it's run and stuff. So people need to bear in mind about that sort of transitional period where you're kind of working an associate while the squat is being developed. So any advice you can give on that. But then also the numbers I classically hear for the first 1 to 3 years, you're working like a dog, you're not making any money, there's no profit yet, and thereafter then it starts to grow. How true is that based on your experience and the experience of those in your network that you know?
Yeah, so you have to be realistic about what you can manage, and also time is money, and also expertise costs money. So as I mentioned earlier, you have a pot of cash and you decide how you spend it. So I decided to do compliance myself, which meant I did the entire CQC application myself. I filled in the forms, agonized over it, did everything myself. But by doing that, I saved £3,000 and then we spent that somewhere else. Someone else might choose to pay someone to do that all for them and then do it that way. And that's totally fine. So I think you need to know what your skill sets are and what you're happy to take on board. Also, I know people that project manage practice builds, and like this guy, it took him over a year to actually open up. So if you think of his time that he spent managing it, all the decisions, all the things, I got an all-encompassing company to do my practice for me. So they designed it, built it, they project managed it. I was realistic. I'm a mum. I've got 2 kids under 4. I'm working as an associate. I don't particularly like dealing with builders myself. And they're smart. They choreograph things. They get the electrician on the right day. They get the chair delivered on the right day. Because of their network and their contacts, I was able to order my chair before I even had my lease. Before I even had my finance. They'd already pre-ordered it for me because they knew it might not happen. Like, if I didn't get the loan, it would have ended there. So they had faith in me and I trusted them, and they did a fantastic job. And like I said, they did my build in 8 weeks. So that is, and then the thing that took me longer was the CQC inspection. I did it and I had to wait for the paperwork to come through, so we couldn't open until we got the certificate. So I prefer to pay experts to run the project for me. Others may choose to use local builders and manage the project themselves and learn about the regulations and take on that responsibility. It depends on you as an individual what you're happy to do. For me, outsourcing it was the right answer, but for others, they want to do it the slow way, save money, do it on a budget, and it will take longer, and that's okay. But time, I'd rather have the practice open quicker. Myself to get it started. And in terms of profit, so I opened up my practice. I think the first month that we were profitable was probably around month 15, 16. Okay. And then at month 17, COVID happened.
Oh my goodness.
The month COVID happened, and then we were closed for 5 months. Like I said, I wasn't clinical because my son was shielding, and we had 1 surgery because I decided on that lovely Corian and the 1 chair, which I regretted because now I needed fallow time and and another chair quickly. So in the end, we didn't take money out of the practice. We actually installed surgery 2 during COVID, which was another, I think, 60 grand or something. So we had to put money in, put surgery 2 in. That made the practice run better. And now we are still currently a 2 surgery practice, but we're planning to do phase 3 soon, and we'll open up the 3rd room. And yeah, I think what you said is realistic. 1 to 4 years, you do work like a dog. It's hard work. I only do 2 clinical days a week, but I'm working full time. But I like what I do and I enjoy value having a team. And when I read my Google reviews, it just fills my heart. I feel like it bursts. It just makes me so proud. And also I can give dentists the environment that I wish I did have, but not just the mentorship, but also the environment in which to do it. So that's what I love providing for my team, and my patients benefit from it as well, because I don't do it all myself. I can't do anything without my team. My team are everything to me, and I'm very grateful for them.
Well, as they say, opportunity comes knocking. The problem is he's dressed in overalls and it smells like hard work, and we all have to, put our graft in, okay? If it's something that, worth having, it won't come easy, right? There's got to be a barrier of entry. So nothing worth having comes easy.
People feel frustrated and they feel stuck where they are. And if you feel frustrated and stuck where you are now, what I'll say is you need to take action. You're not a tree, you're not stuck where you are. You can do something. Like you were in your practice in Summertown, you can move. It's stressful moving jobs. It's not easy, but you knew that was the right thing to do. So taking action isn't always easy.
And same with you. You were proactive in the sense that if you just remained reactive and waited for that practice to come available, then you're very proactive looking at practice. Yes, it took 5 years, okay, which is mad. But then again, it took my wife 8 months to decide on our home sofa. Had no sofa for 8 months, right? And so the reason why me and my wife would never make good practice owners is because I'm very quick at making decisions, but I don't want to deal with any compliance. My wife is very slow at making decisions, okay? Which is why when she wants a new car or something, I was like, yeah, that sounds great, Sim. And she'll never actually buy one, okay? So which is great. So it actually works out. But yeah, I think you got to understand yourself.
Yeah, can I tell you something? That practice that I did VT in, he still hasn't sold it.
Okay, so there we are. You have to be the captain of your own ship. You have to take matters in your own hands. And I think that's a big lesson that we can have from BossLady today. Shabnam, thanks so much for spending time with us today. Where can we learn more from you? How can we find out about your coaching? How can we find out about your education? How can we follow you on social media?
Amazing. So yeah, you can go to shabnamzay.com and follow me on Instagram, Dr. Shabnamzay, and I'd love to have a chat with any of you.
Amazing. Well, I'll make sure I put those links in the show notes so everyone can check it out. And, you obviously are very experienced in the sense that you're actually thinking about this. You're actually helping people about this. I think it's great that you shared what you did on here. And if anyone wants more, you'll make a great mentor for them. Please do register yourself on Intaglio, where we have a database of mentors. And people might want to book you one-to-one as well as maybe doing your sort of coaching program. So do consider making a profile on Intaglio.
Okay, amazing. Thank you, Jazz.
Well, there we have it, guys. Thank you so much for listening all the way to the end. How are you feeling? Do you think that practice ownership is for you? Or maybe like me, you hate some parts of it so much that it may be never right for you. Maybe you are happy as an associate like I am. But remember, guys, I have projects. I always have projects in the go. Being the best dad in the world is a project of mine. Honestly, it's a big part of what I think about, how I plan my day. I take my son to swimming, cricket. We're thinking of maybe starting coding on Wednesdays. There's so much I do with my kids. And that for me is a really important part of my life. And if I had a practice, I don't think I can maintain it at the level I wish to. I was actually at dinner with one of my best buds, Clifton. I was speaking at the Dental Tubule Study Club in Brighton about TMD for GDPs. And I said to Clifton that if Protrusive could grow and grow and grow and become on the level of, let's say, Spear Education, Ripe Global, all those big names out there. But if my children hate me, then that is a total failure. That is not a success. If Protrusive goes completely kaput, goes bankrupt, and all the hard work we've done over the years goes to the toilet, which we very sad indeed, but imagine that happened, but my children absolutely love me and I have a very strong, unbreakable relationship with them, that to me is success. And so whilst I do think I'd make a good leader and I'd run a practice like a very well-oiled machine, I've chosen other priorities. Now, that's not to say that you can't be an amazing mother, you can't be an amazing father, but certainly you can imagine, guys, you guys are already saying to me, Jazz, how do you do it? How do you balance everything? And it's because I know my limits. I know that I've got all these wonderful things we do with Protrusive, Intaglio, all the courses. Being a clinical dentist, I do 18 hours of clinics every week and I love it, but I can't possibly run a practice because I'm loving what I'm doing already. And as you heard earlier today, where there was a phase when I wasn't loving what I was doing because the corporate took over, I was very quick to make a decision. I was very quick to move. So if you're looking in the mirror and you're not happy with the person you see, you're not happy with the environment that you're in, you feel that you're not progressing, you're staying stagnant, how about that change? How about some soul searching? And what a wonderful job Shabnam did today. So please do check out her website and her educational ventures. I will put them in the show notes below. Thank you, Shabnam, for inspiring everyone. And thank you once again, guys, listening all the way to the end. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, please do. If you know a buddy who really needs to hear this episode today, please send it to them. Put it in your practice WhatsApp group. I'd love you forever and ever for it. I'll catch you on Protrusive Guidance. Don't forget the quiz to get your CPD. Thank you so much, Team Protrusive. I'll catch you same time, same place next week. Bye for now.